Okay, so some of you wanted me to show you how I paint the sunset paintings. So I'm just gonna do a little demo here. First of all, what you need is some colors. And the color that I'm gonna start with today is Quinacridone Crimson. So this is a paint color that comes from Golden. And it's a lovely pink shade. And I'm just gonna dilute it with water and use a really big brush and just cover the canvas. And what you wanna do is you wanna have a thin, even layer across your canvas. The color that I'm using here, I find really nice because it tends to warm up all the subsequent colors that you use in the painting. And I also like the way that it kind of adds a bit of vibrancy. So if you leave it between the clouds, it kind of adds a little something there. Now, acrylic paints, as you may know, come in many colors. They come in different degrees of opacity and translucency. So this, the one thing I've just recently learned about acrylic painting is that the most true to form color will be when you take the paint and you just dilute it with water or put it straight on a white canvas. That's actually the truest to the color you'll ever get. So whenever you mix a color with another color or with white, you're essentially diluting the pigment down and you're changing the vibrancy of the color. So when you're trying to make a really vibrant color, the best way to do it is to paint it on white or to paint it on the white canvas itself. And the thing with acrylic that a lot of us that use it often know is it's frustrating because it dries really fast. So sometimes with paintings like cloud paintings, let's say that I wanted to go back and add a more vibrant cloud. One of the ways to do that is to take white paint the shape of the cloud that you want, and then go over it after it's dried with a clear layer of the straight, the paint color that you want. And you can either dilute it with water or you can dilute it with medium. The medium that I'm using today to help my paints dry slower is this one. So it's a gloss glazing liquid. And I'm gonna show you how to use that. Oops, my setup's a bit tricky here today. I've never done this before. So I hope you guys can kind of see what I'm trying to do. I'll see if I can zoom out a bit. But yeah, so I'm just here going with this here like that. Okay. So this is now done and it's really wet, and I want to take advantage of the fact that it's wet with this kind of painting. So I'm now going to get some white, and I just use titanium white. There's another kind of white that has less opacity to it, but I'm looking for opacity. I want to block off some of this pink in order to make the clouds. So with my reference photo in hand, this is the one I'm going to do today. And I folded it before. I was going to do a square canvas, but I'm actually going to try to do the full rectangle. What I'm going to do now is look for big shapes, and I'm going to use my big brush here. This is actually, I think, almost a 2-inch brush to start making the cloud shapes. And you notice, you notice here the bottom, this is the sand, so that's actually fairly low down. So the first thing that's easy is to just mark where that is. So I'm going to just go across, mark that. And then now I'm going to go ahead and start making my cloud shapes. And I'm not going to worry too much about this. You know, it's not going to be perfect. I'm not really, you know, no one's going to know if it's exactly how the picture looked. But what you want to do is pick up your paint, and this is what's called wet and wet. So you're painting big strokes. The other thing you'll notice that I do is I try to move my brush in different directions. A lot of people, when they start painting, what they do is they paint kind of the shape. So if they're painting their cloud, they're going to do this, okay? That doesn't look very real. So what you want to do is move the brush and paint like this, paint in X's. Okay, so I'm basically just layering this on, and you can see that by doing it this way, I'm already getting kind of a nice fluffy effect. And I'm not really worrying about if I get everything, you know, exactly as it is in the photo. I'm just trying to give myself an idea. And so it's a really forgiving way to paint. And the nice thing about acrylic is if you don't like it, you can always paint over. So what I'm noticing now is that my paint is sort of bleeding in together. I'm getting this kind of rose-colored cloud. I think I'm going to leave that for a second, and I'm now going to go to my darkest value of cloud, which is this kind of gray color. And I mixed this color last night. The way I made it is with a bit of cobalt, a bit of ultramarine, a bit of quinacridone crimson, and white. And if you want to make it more gray, you want to add a bit of yellow to that. So let's say you make a color and it's too vibrant and you don't like that, and you want to make something that is more gray or dulled down. The way you do that is you use the color the color from the opposite side of the color wheel. So I'm just gonna mix this again. I'm actually this time remembering that what I did is cobalt blue with a bit of the phthalo blue green shade. And then I'm adding my quinacridone crimson to that. And what it makes is this kind of pretty color here. You can see it's like almost kind of like a blue purple color. Now if I add a bit of my my quinacridone Azo Gold to that, it'll dull it down and it makes it a little bit more gray. So that's a tip that I learned not that long ago actually, how to mix colors. So when you're trying to do that, you want to do something where you want to dull it down. Just remember your color wheel and remember what the color is on the opposite side of the color wheel. Add a bit of that to your paint, mix it, and you'd be surprised. Usually that's the way to fix the color. So I'm trying to move quickly here for two reasons. One, my paint is actually drying as I'm doing this. And two, I find the looser and the quicker I do this, it actually looks better. So you wanna not fuss too much about it. And what I'm gonna do now is take this color and I'm gonna add some white to it. And by adding white to this color, what it's gonna do is lighten it, and it's gonna make it in the same color family, but a lighter value. So you can see it at the tip of my brush. I don't wash my brush between with this, I just go ahead. And what I find is you then get a variation in the color and it's more interesting. And you know, just let yourself enjoy the process of this. I think the first few you do, if you try this method, you're gonna find it, okay, I learned something there. I learned how to mix that color. I learned what works and what doesn't work. Okay, so the next step, I'm gonna make the sky blue, just to start with that. Sky blue, I like to use my phthalo blue. And at the top of the sky, you can see the intensity of the blue is a lot more intense than the bottom of the sky. So you want there to be a gradation from the top to the bottom. So I'm gonna start with just pure phthalo at the top. And I might come over this later and change the color a little bit, but for right now, just to kind of get it in there, I'm gonna go straight for that color. What I usually do when I mix sky blue is I do a bit of phthalo blue, a bit of cobalt, and a bit of white. You can also use ultramarine blue if you want. So I'm gonna try that now. I've got my cobalt here, I've got my ultramarine, and I'm just gonna mix them together. The cobalt just kind of dulls the phthalo down a little bit. You can see me putting that over top. I actually kind of like that color just a little bit better. And now I'm gonna add a bit of white, not too much, just enough for the next layer in the clouds. So down here, and again, I'm trying to exit into the paint that I've done up on the top here, because this is wet and wet, so you're trying to mix the colors together. And as I go down another layer, I'm adding more white, and you can see it on the tip of my brush here, and I'm gonna do that now. And don't worry if the edges aren't really mixing together right now, it doesn't matter. This is just the start, and you can always go back later and fix it. But it's just giving you an outline. Now you can see this part of the painting down here, this part of the sky, it's actually quite a bright blue. It's almost got a bit of a periwinkle color to it. So I'm gonna make sure that I add a lot of white to that, maybe even more than I initially thought. This is how much I'm putting on to mix, and I'm gonna do that part. So down here, and when you look at this, you might think, oh, that's actually, if you can see that there. That's actually not the right color. And again, it probably isn't, but for right now, it's just getting the shape in and getting where things are. Now I'm gonna come back up here with that white on my brush and kind of try to mix it into the sky a little here. And I'm gonna do a bit of that over there. And then you can see these little kind of swirls in the clouds here. I'm gonna go ahead and put some of those in as well. And I'm following the shape of the cloud. So this kind of stroke is a more side to side. And then the other clouds, I try to do the X motion. So this is a good start. I've just gotten going. My final thing I'm gonna do before this video is over is show you how to do some of the orange in the clouds. So I'm gonna clean my brush off. The orange color, I like to make it with the quinacridone Azo Gold and a bit of this new color I got, which is called quinacridone Magenta. So quinacridone Magenta is it's a really lovely pink shade. It almost looks kind of like a fuchsia color. So I'll show you what that looks like on my brush here. It's like this. So it's quite nice and bright. I'm gonna take some of that now, and I'm gonna use some of my quinacridone Azo Gold, which when it's out of paint, it looks like this, but when you mix it with water, it's a lot more of a kind of warm yellow. And when you mix them together, you get this kind of lovely orange color. It's quite bright, probably too bright for what I need. So I'm gonna go ahead and thin that down. And I've mixed it and I can see my color is still too pink. So I'm gonna go ahead and dilute that with way more of my yellow. And I'm looking for the right shade here. I'm gonna mix some of that with my white. And you can see it makes kind of this peach color, which it's a bit maybe too concentrated right now, but I'm not gonna worry about that. I'm just gonna go ahead and try to dust some of that in along the clouds here, just to give it some interest. And so I've just started kind of looking for where I see that color. The way that I usually paint is I look at the picture and I say, okay, where is that color? And I start putting it in, okay? So, you know, I'm just gonna kind of do that. And I'm not gonna worry about it too much. And if I don't like it, I can always fix it later. So now I'm gonna try to make this color here. And funny enough, that color is pretty much the Azo Gold as it is without anything added. I'm just gonna quickly show you one way of painting that way. And for this, I'm gonna get a new brush because I really don't want it to be muddied up by any other color. I'm gonna take my quinacridone Azo Gold and I'm gonna mix it with my medium. So when you mix it with medium, you get a transparent paint that you can paint on top of things. Now, hopefully this is dried. And it's still quite wet. So what I'm gonna do is wait for this to dry, and then I'm gonna take this color and go right over it. And I realized just now, the reason why this orange turned out the way it did is I actually grabbed the wrong color. So I have two colors that are very similar on my palette here. Quinacridone Burnt Orange and Quinacridone Azo Gold. This one's very much more orange. This one's very much more gold. So what I actually wanted was this one. So I'm gonna now just show you that one real quick. And that'll be the end of the video. So I'm gonna grab a new brush because I wanna make sure that I don't muddy this color up. And I'm gonna tint it. Okay, this is way more the color that I wanted. So it's kind of more of a yellow color. So I'm gonna just start, I mean, normally I would probably wait for this to dry, but I'm just gonna put a bit of it on just to kind of get a sense of what it looks like here for you to see it. And what I'm gonna do is show you something that I do a lot is take my finger, oops, and see that was an oops too. And I'll fix that later, I'll paint over it. See how it turned green there? So I'm trying to not go over the blue, I'm trying to just get the yellow on over this pink area, just to give it that. You can kind of see it's starting to approach that color, although it's not quite right. But I'm not really worrying about that right now. And I'm just trying to look at the painting for how it looks and what looks nice. So taking this color then and pulling it through where I see it, and just kind of moving the paint around the page. And when you get to an edge, trying to soften it into the wet paint when you can. This area, which I think some people that are a bit more perfectionist than me would probably bother you. So what I would probably do to fix that is I would take some more of the blue sky that I made and just paint over it. And so I'm gonna just do that, show you how it's easy to fix something. Okay, so you just kind of blend it in. Okay, so that's my demo for today. Give it a try. Let me know how it goes.